John 8:36, the Lord set you free, you'll be free indeed.
We're all children of God, but in what way do God's men actively strive to serve their Lord? At God's Men of Influence, we believe that when men are open to sharing their testimony, God's light shines into the darkness and sets loose His transforming power into our lives. Proverbs 27:17 says, "As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another." Our mission is to create an environment where men can sharpen each other through the sharing of changed lives, and how through God's grace and mercy, we can become better husbands, better fathers, and better men in the service of His kingdom. Be blessed, be joyous, and be welcome here at God's Men of Influence.
Hey everybody, welcome to God's Men of Influence. If you haven't gone to our website yet, I'm going to give that out real quick, and I suggest you go there. We have a ton of guys that we've interviewed, and whatever your problem is, I bet you anything you find somebody that's had it a little bit worse. It's godsmenofinfluence.org. Suggest you go by there. That's godsmenofinfluence.org. Also on our Facebook page, just type in God's Men of Influence. You'll be able to see us there. Make sure you hit the like button, support us. And now I want to bring on our guest, Danny Simmons. He's going to tell you his testimony, which I think you're going to be really enthralled with. But just the name Danny alone, I want to kind of paint the picture. He's a really nice, sweet man, and kind and loving, and that's who he is today. But we're going to find out who he used to be. And as you, the ones that have heard the show before, you'll find out the gist of this show. It's always the same questions. It's, who are you today? Who did you used to be? And then we're going to walk back through Danny's journey together so we can learn from his mistakes and hopefully glorify God with his personal journey. So I'd like to introduce Danny Simmons.
Thank you for letting me be here today and share my experience, strength, and hope, and what I've learned about how God can turn your life around.
You know, the first question I always ask everybody is, are you ready? Are you willing to be exposed?
Yes.
All right. What is your favorite verse and why?
John 8:36, if the Lord set you free, you'll be free indeed. And I think you just have to understand where a guy like me comes from. Drugs, alcohol, abuse, all those things, most of my life. And trying many programs, trying to change without any results, any good results. Probably made me meaner, if anything. I'd place myself beyond human aid, bottom line. And the reason I love that verse so much is because when I came to God and I truly surrendered, He made it easy for me. You know what I mean? All I had to do was surrender and change my life and follow Him. And all the burden of so many things. See, I could remove the alcohol and I could remove the drugs. But in the end, there was still me there. And the only thing that could change me was the Lord. Today,
Without going into your past, who are you today?
And today, I like to think that I'm a man of God, that my goal, I work with people daily. I manage a sober living home. I manage Christian sober living homes, which is my preference, you know. But what I do today is more of the secular world, but I get to influence those people with what my testimony and what God's done in my life. So it works for me, you know.
And I noticed you have a badge that looks like a cop badge, police badge, but it's not. It's got a cross on it. What is the significance of that badge? That's
actually a chaplain's badge that I received for doing the Christian recovery program. I didn't ever go for the state exam, but I did do all the things up to that as far as the Christian side of it, recovery, which I use daily in recovery, helping men find what I found. So I'm where other people use the big book, whatever, I use the Bible. You know what I mean? That's not saying in my life, in order to get to where I was at, I had to do those 12 steps, you know what I mean, of AA. And in that time, I found a God of my understanding, which I choose to call Jesus Christ. Today, it's my blessing to be able to be a chaplain, to be able to manage homes where guys are finding Christ and growing, which is my main goal. See, being sober and being off drugs is a byproduct of my relationship with Christ. Without him, none of those things would have ever been possible. So today I try to stay in that and help other men find what I found.
So let's talk about that a little bit. And I want to get back to today, but now I want to go back to who you used to be. And, you know, you already told us you grew up in a bad environment without really love, more like beatings, and multiple partners with your mom, and no real good upbringing that would set you in the right path. So at some point, you veered off the path, probably started causing some problems, doing some illegal things. How bad did that actually get? Like, what was the worst? Where were you at your worst? What kind of a man were you?
I was a soldier for Satan, and probably one of his top soldiers. And I'm not proud of that, but that's just what you become with that mentality. You can't do the things I did without and have any knowledge or any working part of what God's doing in your life.
So I know from our conversation, you used to be a drug dealer.
That's correct.
Dealt drugs. I'm assuming you did probably some other things that were pretty bad too.
Oh, yeah.
And how long did that life go for?
Well, I was 59 years old and when I finally decided that I'd had enough. And what that was entailed in that was having to tell my grandchildren that I was a drug dealer and I was going to jail for.
So you were actually dealing and doing all this bad stuff all the way till you were 59?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I grew pot even after that because I justified as medical marijuana for a period of time, you know.
And how old are you now?
I'm 67.
Okay. I got to tell you look damn good for being 67 years old.
That's God.
Especially living the life that you led.
Amen.
And how often, how much of that 59 years were you in jail?
Not near what I should have been. I always had good lawyers, but I should have been doing probably 30 years for the amounts of drugs that I was not only selling, but I was manufacturing. But they couldn't prove that part, you know what I mean? So just for what I did get busted for, though, if it wasn't for, it had to be God that saved me from that, because it was good lawyers have ways of making things happen that put the cops on the wrong side, you know.
And at any point during that 59 years, had anybody ever tried introducing you to Jesus? Had Jesus, church, anything ever come into your world?
You know, I think that, when I was raising my kids, I mean, you know, I was like two different lifestyles, you know, because I got married at 18. My wife was pregnant. And
still married to her?
Huh?
You still married to her?
No. We were married 24 years, and we've been divorced that long now. But, no, I mean, that was all my doing, too. You know what I mean? It wasn't. But we were both young. We were both drug addicts. You know what I mean? It was but amazingly, you know, I was looking for that family that I never had as a kid. I wanted my own family. So it really worked for me, believe it or not, for a long time. I mean, I was really mellow in the drug field because I was really a maintenance user at that time. I wasn't selling so much, not most of that time anyway. But, yeah, it's amazing how God was always there. I just wouldn't recognize him. I was afraid to. I was afraid. I seen people that needed God as weak.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'd seen them as not being able to control their own lives. And don't you know, I thought that I was, this sounds really bad, but I thought I was God because I always had the big bag of dope and I always had the...
Everybody wanted to be your friend.
That's right. And
or kill you, one of the two.
Yeah, either way, yeah. But some are both, surely, yeah. But little did I realized my big thing was when somebody came to me and asked me for something, it was always like, what have you done for me lately? It was all about me. It was never about helping somebody. If I helped you, you were going to give me something. I helped people buy houses so they would grow dope in their house or deal drugs out their back door. You know, I would help them do a lot of them, buy them cars so they could drive around and transport the stuff. But I wouldn't, I never did anything for anybody that I wasn't going to get something back for.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was always about me.
Let me ask you, did you ever have a gun pointed at you?
Well, I've been shot at. I used to wear a bulletproof vest pretty much, you know, if I was on my bike, you know, or if I was out, you know, doing my work.
Having bullets flying at you, was that the big turning point where you said, hey, I got to stop?
Never bothered me.
Never bothered you?
No. I mean, I wore that stuff like a badge of honor. You know what I mean? It's all about, you know, being that tough guy, being that guy that was invincible. You know what I mean? You mess with me, you're going to be hurt badly. So, yeah.
And at some point, there was some big epiphany that happened in your life. At some point, something was strong enough to turn you, to flip you. What was that point?
That point was I was busted once again. I was going to be going to jail, and there was no buying my way out of it this time. You know what I mean? It was in the papers. You know what I mean? My daughter told me all the times before. See, my grandchildren thought I was at Club Med. We called it Club Fed. You know, and whenever I talked to them on the phone from jail, hey, how you doing, Grandpa? Are you having fun? And I'd lie and tell them all these stories. Yeah. But don't you know, that's what we are. That's our liars, you know what I mean? Cheats, deceivers, you know. But they never knew. And then getting back to what happened was my daughter told me, you know, Dad, I love you, but I can't lie to the kids anymore. You're going to have to tell them the truth. And I thought, oh, my gosh, you know. But I really didn't want them to find out from somebody else that their grandfather was a drug dealer, you know. So I sat them down, and they cried, and I cried. And, you know,
how old were they at that time?
The oldest one was 11 and 9. Yeah. And I was their idol, you know. I mean, I was quite the family guy on the front side, but on the back side, it was that guy that was mean, crazy, and all those things. So I just led a dual life, you know. And believe it or not, I pulled it off pretty well, I thought, you know what I mean? But wasn't fooling God. God was just waiting for his opportunity. And don't you know, I swore then, I said, you know, I will never, ever hurt my grandchildren like that again. Not realizing all the time that I'd hurt my daughter and her sister, you know what I mean? It was like, wow, you know. And that's when you really realize, I never really thought about being bad until I needed God to come into my life, and I had to just admit to what I was, you know, and to move forward, you have to reveal just what you are. And it was a lot worse than just the drug dealer, trust me. There was a lot of bad things. Womanizer, I took full advantage of women, and I did, you know, a lot of really bad things that I'm not proud of. But that's just who you are. You know, when you think you control everything, you know, you have the power, you know, to get anybody. If I wanted something and it was something that I would have trouble with, whether it's guns or whatever, I just put up a bag of dope and I'd get whatever I needed. Because don't you know, you can get whatever you need if you have a bag of dope.
Yeah.
I mean, guys will go out and steal from other people. I had an arsenal of guns. Today I don't have to be that person. You know what I mean? Today I can, the Lord has just been so good in my life, relieving me of myself.
So let me ask you though, I really want to know what it was that dropped you to your knees that said, I'm done, I'm sorry, and I love you. You know, like you said you didn't want to hurt your grandchildren, but if that's the case, that means that God was introduced to you somehow.
Not really. I was still just scared, not knowing how I was going to change my life. How do you change your life at 59 years old? It wasn't until
So let me ask you this question. Was it God that helped you change your life at that point, or was it just the grandkids and
my
you being
reason
unhappy?
for wanting to do it was I never ever wanted I didn't want to leave a legacy that their grandfather was a drug dealer. I wanted to leave a legacy of my grandfather loved me. He was this. That's why I did all the things I've done, become a chaplain, drug and alcohol counseling, working with men in recovery. But not just men in recovery. I mean, I work with men in all aspects of life. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So life coach, work with younger guys and helping them realize that through Jesus Christ, their life can be beyond their wildest dreams. And I don't care what's happened to you, what your problems are, what your addictions are, what your shortcomings are, if you will. God forgives you, and He wants you to be part of His kingdom. He wants you to have, to be loved and love abundantly for the rest of your eternity, not just for now. But what God has for me was so much more than I could understand or comprehend. Let me get back to what really turned me. It was after I got out of jail. I made a decision. I turned myself right into a sober living home, because I was scared to death. I knew if I went on the streets, I was going to be back doing what I did before. So my daughter actually picked me up and took me to a place called 5 Point Sober Living, which is where I manage right now. And
I got to say, it's amazing that your daughters would even talk to you.
My daughter never knew about me until she was already married.
Wow.
Believe it or not. And that's when my wife turned me in for. My wife's the one who turned me in for.
Really?
It was the first time I ever got arrested. Yeah.
Pissed her off, huh?
Oh yeah. But yeah. I would say I completed that fully. But yeah. I mean, when I got out of jail and I ran into a roommate that was my roommate there at 5 Points, was a guy named Carmine, which is a big part of our program we're doing today. He's the one who bugged me, and I told him, don't give me none of that Christ, Jesus stuff. I'm tired of it, and I'll beat you up if you keep on going, He says, well, come check it out, You're after man, you say you are, you'll come check it out, Always giving me that edge, you know what I mean? Just needling. Finally one day, all right, I'm going to come check it out. I did, and I walked in there. I won't tell you what I said to Matt, but he asked me how I was doing. Welcome. I'm only here to get my card signed, and a few other choice words, which are pretty vulgar. I won't even go into. But and the food. And everybody was so afraid of me, because that's what I wanted. That's what I lived my life by fear, you know what I mean? And I sat down and started listening, and the guys kept loving on me, and that shield started melting, you know what I mean? And this is really what I've been looking for all my life, and I could never, and now I have a chance to do it. I have a chance to really surrender and really, amongst men that are warriors for the Lord, and to change my life. And to just not only change my life, but be able to be a vessel for the Lord to work through to help others. Yeah, I was all in.
How long do you think that period of time took where you finally gave 100%, really believed?
I think I really believed. I think when my daughter went home to see the Lord, I couldn't deal with it. I mean, I was really broken. I was crying. I was just like, I couldn't get all my life. If somebody hurt my daughter, I would dissect them. I mean, I would really, pain would be involved, trust me. They'd be lucky to be dead with what I do to them. And the first time in my life, I couldn't do that.
So I'm taking it your daughter was murdered? Or she died, at least.
Well, she died from liver failure and kidney failure. That was her diagnosis, I guess. And I didn't. I hated it. I hated the doctors that gave her all the drugs. I hated their husband. That was. I found out later had given her antifreeze and orange juice, which kills the liver for sure. Not that she wasn't already on that path, but. Yeah, and that's when she ended up in the hospital and blew up.
So was he trying to kill her? Why would he give her that?
Well, yeah, I believe he was. Money, Social Security, whatever. You know, my daughter had 7 children, and first thing we did was get them away from him. You know what I mean? Got them into professional services care. You know, up north, but. Yeah, it was crazy. Who knows what goes on in that guy's mind? I never did. Only time I seen him, I slapped him pretty extensively. You know, I didn't hit him with my fist, but I did. He looked like a beat. You know, when I was done with him, and I kicked him in the butt. But that's who I was. You know, and
so your child dies. That in itself is heart-wrenching in many ways. I mean, that would be the worst possible thing anybody could ever inflict on a father. And your past life, as we know, you would have dissected the man and gone crazy. What happened? How did you deal with it?
Well, I knew that I had 7 grandchildren that were going to need me more than ever. You know, and I thank God for Dave Roman, Matt Orleano, the guys that really helped me find what I'd found. Prayers and just like having a strong men's group, you know, guys that were always with you. All you had to do is pray, you know, and call them up. They pray with you anytime. You know, having that kind of a support system, I think was instrumental. And I mean, I was even sitting down in a Catholic chapel, right, praying, right, and being a Christian didn't matter. That was I'd still get a hold of the Lord there, you know. But I was crying. I couldn't get myself together. And I had 2 friends came up. They were Christians in the program, and they were with me. They come up and prayed with me. And I really believe that's one of the big things that kept me from hurting that guy at that time. In fact, one of them pulled me off the guy when I was touching him up a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, it's amazing when you have the love of God in men that are surround you. And a friend of mine told me, he says, Dan, what makes you think that you can punish that guy or hurt that guy, anything like what God is going to do to him for eternity? What makes you think you can do that? So at that point in time, I prayed for that guy that he find what I found. What an amazing transformation. But, you know, it's not that simple. I prayed that prayer, but I didn't believe it. You know, I had to pray that prayer for probably 3 months every day until I began to believe it.
Yeah.
But, you know, losing your child is something nothing in your life will ever prepare you for, especially when you're looking at the 7 kids crying, you know, Papa, aren't you going to do something about this? You know, because they call me Papa. And aren't you going to fix this? Many times when they were young, one of her boyfriends or whatever touch her up, and I'd drive from L.A. up there, and believe me, I'd break both of their arms, and you know, they wouldn't be hitting my daughter anymore anyway, or my grandchildren, and that happened more than once, and they couldn't understand why I wasn't doing something about what had happened. At the time, they'd felt this thing about the stepfather, and what he'd done. And the oldest one actually told me, and it was so hard to. The doctors were saying, you know what I mean, it was all the Klonopin and the alcohol and stuff, you know. So I didn't dispute it at that time, but later I found out not only from my grandchildren, but from a couple of her friends that, in fact, that he was doing some. And, of course, it was too late to do that. And it really didn't matter at that point how she died, the fact she was dead, and she's never going to be back. The fact that I talked to her pastor, and she was going to church, and she did love the Lord, and she was doing those things anyway.
Yeah.
So knowing that someday I'll be able to see her again is the only thing that keeps me going, really, to know that I want to live my life so that I can glorify God and reserve my place in heaven for eternity with Him, you know.
So let me ask you, if we fast forward a little bit back to today, you know, you've had quite the journey prior to the whole first 59 years. I'm certain you had quite the journey in the last 8 years,
Yeah.
and one would like to say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but one would like to say that you accept the Lord and everything changes, and you no longer have urges, you no longer have cravings, you no longer, you know, have friends that you've had for 59 years, and everything's wonderful. Has it been difficult to leave that lifestyle behind you? Has it been difficult to be around some of those guys, or do you still associate with them? Do you go after them now and try and bring them to the Lord?
I've tried, but you know what? I know this. I don't go anywhere unless I have a brother with me that will support me in what I believe. You know, I never go into those environments unless I have another brother in Christ to go with me. I don't have the answers, but I know who does. You know, I don't even understand the questions most of the time, but I know where to get the answers. You know what I mean? And that's all in the Word of God.
Yeah.
And it's for me, it's just who I am and what I do. As far as I had to say goodbye to friends that I raised my kids with, because they're still dabbling, you know, and they're not dealing, but they're dabbling in those things which will put me right back to where I was at. I had to say goodbye to them, and I told them, I says, and they were angry, but I had to tell them that, you know what, brother, I'll be here for you. If I keep doing what I'm doing, I'll be here for you when you need me.
Yeah.
If I go back to what I'm doing, who's going to help either one of us? It's really simple.
You know, I just got to ask, how does somebody live so hard for all those years and after 60 years old still do it? Like, it's like all the rock stars you see, right? They're all juicy now and they're all clean because they can't continue that lifestyle. You know, when you tell me you did all that up till 59, I just can't even fathom how hard your life was, how hard you were on your body, I should say.
Well, if you knew me when I came in, I was one step away from death. You know, I'd been in the hospital numerous times, 4 times in the last year. My blood pressure, my heart was exploding. And they just say, hey, roll him in the back room, give him what medication you can to help him, and then he probably won't make it through the night. Because I had so much speed in me, my heart was just, going crazy. And 4 times in the last year, the last time they 5150'd me, because nobody does that to themselves without wanting to kill themselves. You see?
What is 5150?
That is where you're kind of without faculties. You're not of sound mind.
Got it.
Right? And they put you in there for an evaluation. Well, my evaluation went on for, generally it's 7 days, and they kept me extended period of time because
I couldn't get their head around you, huh?
Because I was pretty crazy, you know what I mean? And being locked in that room with more crazies, it made me crazier, if that's possible. But I just wanted out, and I was going to do whatever I had to do to get out. But my life is good today because I have a maintenance program my life is contingent on my relationship with Jesus Christ on a daily basis. Not every Sunday, not sometimes, daily. I get up and I read my word in the morning, and you know what? I pray and I ask God for guidance and to help me help people throughout the day and help me be that man he created me to be, and to be a vessel for him to work through, to be that light at the end of the tunnel. I can't tell you the joy, and I had all the things. I had all the money. I had all the houses. I literally gave those things away, gave them away. Some of it I gave to church, some of it I gave to just friends that were, in need, But motorcycles, cars, you know what I mean? I had all that stuff.
Yeah.
But they were just things. They were things that kept me in my disease, not, what I'm saying? They were, and releasing myself of all that bondage, because those things were bondage, because this is, it wasn't about serving God. It was about, I'm important. I see all this stuff I have,
Yeah.
And today I'm important because I'm a man of God. I've turned my life over to him. I serve him on a daily basis. My relationship with him and my life is all contingent on my relationship with him. It's not no human power could restore me to sanity, like I said.
Sure. So, there's like one of the questions I like to ask is, was there somebody that was pivotal during that period of time in your life? And the reason why I ask that question is because all of us have this opportunity to minister to somebody out there, and a lot of times we don't, because we're too embarrassed or afraid to talk about God, or we're too manly to go up to another man and say, I love you, or I got you. So I'd like to give credit to where credit is due. If there was somebody during that time that you would have said saved your life or helped you get to that place.
Oh, without a doubt, I'd have to. There was a couple of people, but the guy that was really instrumental in my life was Dave Roman. He was a guy that when I was right after my daughter died, and he'd seen the transformation that God had in me. He actually him and his brother bought a house that we called the Freedom House. And it was a Christian, sober living, a real Christian, where we got up and read the Word in the morning, and anybody was there. It was if you weren't doing God's program, it's not that you're bad. I mean, we just ask you to go find a place that's more suited to your needs.
Yeah.
But it was, I think Dave Roman helping me get to that point, because I was totally frustrated, and Matt knows that I was, I wanted the church to help me, and of course the church, multiple churches turned me down for doing a sober living, you know what I mean, a Christian sober living. Today I'm very blessed with having an opportunity to work with Matt and to be able to plan the Jordan Center, which is going to be a phenomenal deal for men. It's more of a discipleship house, but men will be able to recover from a seamlessly hopeless state of mind. And we know from experience, I know from experience, that alcohol and drugs weren't my problem; they were my solution. I had a life of pain, and the only thing that could cure me of that was serving a God that made the universe, made everything in it. So that's just me, you know what I mean? And I can't make everybody believe what I believe, but if you knew me before and you see me today, people don't even know who I am today when they talk to me. People that knew me from the past, they don't even want to be around me because they're afraid of it. But that's just, that fear is because of their afraid of finding out who they really are in Christ, I think.
And, and also before the show started, we had talked a lot about forgiving yourself, how God forgives us, but we struggle with forgiving ourselves. And I'm assuming for a man who lived that kind of life, right? It's got to be a struggle to say, hey, I know I did a lot of harm to people, but I forgive myself. And when you're saying that you go back to some of these old people, when you see them and they're afraid, because I don't think any of them think that they can be forgiven at this point.
I didn't think I could. I really didn't believe I could be forgiven in the beginning. I mean, that's why I figured I was going to hell, and that was the end of it. You can't. I didn't believe that 5 years, 10 years of doing the right thing could make up for the 59 years that I was absolutely that soldier for Satan, like I've said. So I really believe that in my life, I have a daily reprieve contingent on my spiritual, how I best serve God. When I get up in the morning and I pray, I ask him, okay, God, what have you got for me today? Well, how can I best serve you? What is it out there that you need me? And, the answers always come. Go to a meeting, pull a guy out of a meeting and pray with him, right? I have a lot of joy in, I call AA my fishing ground. Matt used to get a kick out of this because I brought a lot of people to our program from AA that really realized now that was what they were lacking was Jesus. Not a program, but Jesus.
One can call you the fisherman of men.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I love what God is doing in my life today, because without him, I wouldn't be doing any of the things I'm doing. Let's face it. But along with that, if I wouldn't have had the men that surrounded me in the beginning and loved me till I could love myself, I wouldn't be here today. But the Lord sent the right people to me, is what I'm saying. And without those people, and I want to be one of those people for the other guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want people to understand that it's an amazing life. And people that know me and see me today think, man, Dan, you don't look your age. You should have seen me when I came in. I looked my age and then some. But God does for us what we can't do. He won't do anything for us that we can do for ourselves. But he loves doing for us what we can do for ourselves, especially when we call on his name, openly and publicly.
Well, let me ask you a couple more questions, and we can wrap it up. Is there a book that you could recommend to the listeners?
I have two.
Okay.
A Purpose-Driven Life and Disciplines of a Godly Man. Both.
Do you know who is the author of Disciplines of a Godly Man?
I forget, but Rick Warren's on Purpose-Driven Life. I forgot who wrote.
It's probably the most recommended book on our show.
I mean, that's really, yeah. I mean, I love the book. I love what's in it, but I mostly love the transformation I've seen in people by walking them through that, ask them to read that book, and kind of mentoring them as they go through. It's just one of the greatest books I've ever read. The other book is Multiply, discipleship book. Francis Chan, which is there's so many books that changed my life. That all of them, if I had to recommend anything to people, I'd recommend them to come to our Recovering Our Freedom program. Well, Fuel Ministries is the program we do, and it's like it's all about God. You know what I mean? And because we're not only doing that program, we're introduced to a lot of things. That's where I got introduced to all those things. And when you're around men accountable to Christ, right, then everybody's sharing something that they're reading, and sometimes we get together and do them as a group. And there's a lot of power in that, because you're sharing what you're reading. Matt's blessed me many times with taking me through books and then having and going through them chapter by chapter and helping us understand the strengths and the points in those books. But yeah, I would say that definitely, without a doubt, A Purpose-Driven Life is a great book, and it's going to be probably a book I read over and over again. because I love I have a devotional I do. It's out of Life Recovery. It's through it's another program that we do, but Celebrate Recovery. But they have a devotional that I love reading daily, and I mean it's just important to me. I read 3 books: Jesus Calling.
Great book.
Yeah, Jesus Calling. The Word of God, of course, is my first one, and then Jesus Calling, and then I read that devotional.
Awesome.
And that pretty much starts up my time, and then I meditate on what I've read in the morning.
Yeah.
And then and you know what? Then I repray for God to use me in what and how I can best serve Him in what I've read. And those things are just amazing to me. I mean, what an opportunity. And today I can honestly say that trials, for me, aren't trials. They're opportunities.
Yeah.
They're opportunities to show people just how great God is in my life and how He's blessing me daily. So, yeah, I'm just...
Danny, let me ask you, if somebody's listening right now that is struggling with something that they think you might relate to, would it be okay for them to reach out to you via email?
Sure.
And talk with you? What's your email address?
DNDSMM NS, it's my name without vowels, at yahoo.com.
At Yahoo. So that's DNDSMMNS at yahoo.com.
Okay.
And for all you guys listening right now, I invite you to reach out to him. The man has 59 years of being a soldier for Satan. He knows what that lifestyle is. So if you think you've done some bad things, off air, he'll probably tell you some things that he's done that's a lot worse. And he'll be able to guide you and hopefully mentor you through some cleaner and more prosperous days ahead by being a warrior for Christ. Danny, go ahead.
Can I offer one more way of getting a hold of me?
Sure.
fuelministries.org. If you want to, if you're interested in any part of what I've had to say, or you're really interested in what I'm doing today and you want to get on board, Fuel Ministries is definitely the place to do that. Because I'm there at Recovering Our Freedom every Tuesday. All right.
So fuelministries.org. I'm going to caution you because I Googled it and I first clicked on the one that says .com. It's not. It's a different.
.org.
Yeah, it's .org, O-R-G. And we also have interviewed the founder of that, Matt Ariano. He was on just a couple shows prior to this. You should go on and listen to his testimony as well. Thank you again, everybody, for listening. And I invite you to come on to our website, listen to more shows. Go ahead and leave comments. Communicate with people. Also, and our website is godsmenofinfluence.org. Also, go to our Facebook page. Just type in God's Men of Influence. Hit the like button. You'll be able to see all the stuff we do there and get some of our daily scripture that we put out. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Danny, thank you for sharing your testimony and being so open and honest about it. And for everybody listening, be blessed, be joyous, be welcome to God's Men of Influence. See you next time.